Welcome to the Marathon Investigation Podcast, where we discuss and debate the latest news regarding course cutters, bandits, and bib mules.
Hello, this is Derek Murphy. Welcome to the Marathon Investigation Podcast. This will be an episode just to give some updates. I'll try to do these weekly or bi-weekly, just depending on how much is going on. So there's quite a bit going on last week. Just to start right off, the big article that I wrote last week, or a series of articles, was about Valerie, who was brought to my attention as somebody who routinely was running with copied bibs. Typically, these bibs would be ones that a specific friend of hers purchased, and then she would copy them, and then she would move on to slightly modifying the bibs and running the races. I estimated in the article that she probably did this with over $1,000 worth of bibs. Looking back at it, I think it's probably much more than that. A photo came out, which I wrote an article on, with a turkey trot where 5 friends all had identical bibs, including Valerie, and just pretty much crazy, blatant. And, again, I say it's stealing, theft. She was also raising money for the Justin Turner Foundation through an entry in the LA Marathon, which she did enter legitimately for 2019. And she also raised money for the foundation in 2018, and looking at her LA Marathon bib for 2018, she had copied that, and somebody else was running with a copy of her bib. I'm not sure who that person was. I hadn't seen that. This was a gentleman. I hadn't seen him in previous photos from the other bib copying, so I don't know if she did that to sell the bib or just gave the bib if he's a friend or whatever. But regardless, it was just going back a number of years, constant copying of bibs, and I still don't know what the motivation is behind it, whether it's the cost of the bib, just, getting away with something. I don't know. So brings me to another aspect of this, which I mentioned briefly in the Facebook group and in the comments. Somebody had posted on Friday afternoon that I stole Valerie's photos off of Instagram, and that they're surprised she didn't file a takedown notice. Well, within 24 hours from someone making that post, Valerie did actually file a takedown notice. And basically what that is she filed the complaint with my provider, with the host for the website, saying that I had taken her copyrighted photos and use them, which is a violation of the DCMA laws, which is a Digital Copyright Media Act. And I am fighting that complaint, and I think it's pretty clear. Basically, the use of her Instagram photos that I used falls under the Fair Use Act, where I put up those photos in order to report news, comment, and criticize. So I think that's a pretty clear exception to the rule, and that's clearly what I did in that article. Very similar to any news organization that's going to use photos from wherever to report on the news and to comment on them. I'm not using the photos to sell anything, promote anything in that manner. Again, it's strictly to report, comment, criticize. You can also use photos. Another exception is to parody, which I wasn't doing any parody. And one other interesting note of that, within that complaint, I was able to actually look at the photos, even though she's made her Instagram private, and the initial complaint had links that did work. And one of the photos that she filed this complaint against was a Instagram post that she had put up where she had her marathon photo race picture. Now, this marathon photo picture had the watermark on it, meaning she didn't purchase the rights to this photo. She did a screen capture off a marathon photo and put that up on her own Instagram, and she claimed I was violating her copyright on that, when clearly she doesn't have the copyright to that photo. She did not purchase that photo, so she had no right to even post that up on her social media. Now, one clarification, you might say that in the past, I've used Marathon Photo or other photo sites with the watermark as parts of my article. I do on that occasion. Usually I do try to purchase those just for clarity. And again, I think it's just a cleaner, better look. I won't use a featured photo on the site that has the watermark. If it's a matter of being a series of photos that I'm reporting on, I will sometimes just do a screenshot from the Marathon Photo page. And again, that would fall under fair use. But again, since Marathon Photo is not the guilty culprit in this, usually I do try to purchase the photos as it's applicable and as it's feasible. I should say, again, if it's just multiple photos, it just doesn't make sense for me to purchase all of them. But anything that's key to the article, key to the case, I do purchase a photo. And I've shied away. I really do try not to use any photos that I haven't purchased from the site, again, unless it's just an extreme situation. But regardless, I think it would be within my rights to do so. So anyhow, I am fighting that. So where it's at right now is I had 48 hours from receiving the complaint, which was Saturday morning, to counter, which I did. So again, if I had done nothing, the host could have taken the site down, and so hopefully they get the notice, and legally they need to leave the content up. And if Valerie wants to file a suit, she is welcome to do so. But again, my counterclaim would be that she would be potentially liable for any damages. My counterclaim would be that she did not issue that complaint in good faith and that she ignored the fair use exception. So that's where it's at now. I may write on that in detail. I may not. Again, I'm ready to kind of move past that story unless there's more to it. So that's where that is. Another update quickly was Surf City Marathon. And that was actually one of the races where Valerie had copied Bibs. And so I wrote about that. There was another issue, which I may write about this week, where we had a husband acting as a bib mule for the wife. So he carried 2 bibs and earned her a Boston qualifying time, as well as himself a Boston qualifying time at Surf City. That it was caught, and she was removed, or actually she was moved to the half marathon results, which I take exception to when I emailed the race regarding that. So she was moved to the half marathon results. I had messaged the husband. He admitted to what they did. He said it was to keep her, she had an injury, and it was to keep her legacy status with the race, where if you run so many consecutive years, you have legacy status. I think you get a special t-shirt, which he said was the motivation. So again, I'm not sure if I'm buying that, but he did admit to the bib muling. So again, if I write about it, it's the only instance of cheating or bib muling that I found within this group. So again, I may write about that generally along with Surf City, but again, I think she should be removed from the half marathon results, because by keeping her in the half marathon results, she still has legacy status, which was the whole goal of the bib muling, according to the husband. I think it may have been more in Boston. He has run Boston in the past, so again, I do question that the motivation was for a t-shirt, but I may be writing on that. Additionally, if you want to take a listen, if you listen to the podcast in the past, when I talked to Eli Ash of CIM, California International Marathon, we talked about a disqualification regarding a runner for using illegal pacer. I'd recommend that you go to the Running Rogue podcast. They have a podcast where they spoke to this runner who was disqualified, and I also came on and discussed the rules and the decision and kind of what went through the process, and a little more with what I do with CIM and the whole process there. So I recommend listening to that. I will write on that more. It's something I think I very rarely write about or comment is on using illegal pacers. Now, I talk about banditing and being on the course when you're not registered, which in this case, the runner who jumped in to help, the runner's name is Ashley, to help Ashley through the second half of the marathon. She jumped in at 13.1 at the relay location, jumped in and finished the race with Ashley on her way to her Boston qualifying time. So she was a bandit. So in that sense, I address it, but one thing we don't address is, okay, the runner that she was pacing, she got disqualified because she was utilizing the services unauthorized aid is the rule. So I'll get into that. I would definitely write on that in more detail to clarify so people are aware that, hey, if you have somebody that is not registered for the race running with you, again, depending on the race, you risk disqualification. Any race that is USATF sanctioned would follow those rules. So I would definitely check with the race rules. I can't imagine any marathon, any Boston qualifying marathon that would be okay with having somebody who's not registered for the race hopping in for half of a marathon without being registered. So I don't imagine that would be okay by any race, but again, make sure you know the rules and make sure you're clear on that and know that the rules do apply to everybody, not just the elites. There are some elite-specific rules, but that should be laid out clearly. And again, if you have any doubt, ask the race director. Really, if you have any doubt, it's probably not allowed. So I wanted to touch on that, and I will be writing about that. And an article that I'm going to be posting today, again, well, maybe I'll follow up on that in a later one this week. Again, it kind of goes along the lines of false claims or embellished claims. So basically, there's a political candidate who claims to be an Ironman competitor and a marathoner. And so I posed the question in the Pathetic Triathletes group on Facebook. I say, hey, if someone says they're an Ironman competitor, what do you take that to mean? And usually it was, hey, it was somebody finished a full Ironman. Some people say, hey, that means they're competing at the age group level or higher. But it's definitely, the Ironman in distance, and I know some people get confused. They just call everything an Ironman. If it's a 70 or if it's the full distance, the 140.6, I believe. If it's a full distance, someone will call that Ironman. So the branded part's a little bit gray. I'm sure Ironman would fight that and say it's only if it's not an Ironman branded race, don't call it an Ironman. But in this case, the runner, the candidate, the triathlete they claimed had finished two-time Ironman competitor, and an article say they've been talked about the full distance. So looking at her finishes, she had a mini triathlon, which was like a 4-mile run or a 4-mile bike, 2-mile run, and 400-meter swim or something to that effect. So definitely not the full distance. And then there was a half. And that was in 2000, and I might have the years backwards, but it was basically like in 2010 and 2012 was when these were the case. So she's definitely not currently an Ironman competitor. She never was an Ironman competitor. She did a couple smaller triathlons back, 7-8 years ago. And as far as the marathoner, she did have a 2010 marathon, which was over 5 hours. Again, I don't think my marathons are all over 5 hours, so I won't fault her for that. But again, it kind of leads to believe that, hey, she's still running marathons and doing triathlons where it's been, up to 8 years ago where she did those. So I'm just going to write about that. Again, she's a political candidate. Looking at the polls, it doesn't look like she's in the forefront, but she did get some notoriety from some big name supporters and some national attention. So I think it's important to kind of write about. I'd reached out to her a number of times. Her campaign had seen the messages that I messaged on Facebook, but no reply. I emailed the media contacts, the press contacts on her website, and again, no reply. So I've tried for almost a week now to contact her and clarify, and if they would have said, said it was an oversight and changed the statement, which is in the first paragraph on her homepage, I probably would have backed off. But again, I've got no response, so I'm going to post that article later this morning. So really, that's about it. Just wanted to give, again, a quick update. Again, anyone has questions, shoot me messages on Facebook, email, wherever. And please look in, to keep this podcast going, so it's not a big loss for me. Please do go to Patreon and patreon.com/marathon investigation, and you can support for $3 a month. And again, if you do that's a big help and helps me continue doing this venture full time with the podcast and the website. Or you can just go to the website, and off to the right or within any articles are links to where you can contribute. The contributions are greatly appreciated, and it is the main source and the main way I keep this going. I do have a couple partnerships with races, but I really would prefer to limit that and not really go out pushing and selling that. I want races that just really care about the integrity to come to me, and I'm happy to work with those races. Again, if I have to do a hard sell to get partnerships, I think they're fully on board, and maybe not for the right reason. So again, the more I can get from kind of grassroots and from the readers, the more independent I can be. And again, that's the way I prefer to keep it for the most part. So anyhow, thanks again for listening. Thanks for reading, and we will talk to you again very, very soon. And also, if the email address is derek@marathoninvestigation.com. And also, I'll plug Scotty Coomer's podcast, 10 Junk Miles. Again, he has a lot of great stuff on there. And be sure to listen to the Rogue Running podcast if you want to listen to the runner who was disqualified for using the pacer.
Thank you for listening to the Marathon Investigation Podcast. Have a questionable result to report? Visit marathoninvestigation.com to contact us or email Derek at results@marathoninvestigation.com.
Another case closed for the Marathon's silent guardian.